Hey guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University, and Amazing Spider-Man issue number 67. You ever sit down and you see the story, and it's a really great story, and for a long time it is, and you've come to trust it, but all of a sudden in the distance you notice that there's a shark, and you're like, oh no, don't tell me that this is going to jump that shark. It's making a beeline right towards the shark. Please don't tell me that's going to happen. I'm at that moment now where I just noticed there's a shark up there, and we're on the water. Anyway, let's get talking about who made this comic book, and we'll go on from there. So Nick Spencer is the writer. Marcelo Ferreira with Carlos Gomez does the pencils. Wayne Faucher and Marcelo Ferreira and Carlos Gomez does the inks. Maury Hollowell and Andrew Crossley does the colors. VC's Joe Caramagna doing the letters. Mark Bailey, John Dell, and Brian Reber do the cover art, and Javier Garren and David Curiel does the variant cover. Spider-Man was created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko. So, this story, there was so much happening in this story, and every single thing that happened in this story had something to do with something else at some other point, either recently or a ridiculously long time ago. The John Byrne rule. Okay? If you every comic that you create is someone's first comic. So if you can't make that comic accessible to a brand new reader, then you failed the John Byrne rule, right? At the end of the day, that's what this is. Look, a whole lot happened here. I always love when the Teresa Parker character shows up. I really like that character a lot. Family Business was just, amazing. And then Chip Zdarsky coming along later and making her canon in the Marvel universe. Like that's just genius. I love that. And I like the idea that Spencer is using her now. But so much of this relates to, I forget what was that, like Amazing Spider-Man number 6? No, it was way before 600. I don't know. I remember I was a kid in the very early 90s, right? So I guess that would have been 89 to 90. I guess it was 89. That would have been 1989, 88, 89. Anyway, whatever it was. When we got the story, those beautiful covers, man, with freaking Captain America, Black Widow, and Red Skull, right? And Spider-Man, and then like Red Skull and Sabretooth, and all these different characters would be there. And we find out about the foreigner who assassinated Peter's parents. All this crazy stuff. We found out they were actually super spies, and there was a lot going on. There was a whole lot going on. It was really wild. And it's interesting that they chose to do that. Was it bad? No. Was it great? No. If you liked it, it is what it is. I don't want to have to keep on appealing to individuals. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of that, but it's okay if you loved that. I'm not mad at you. Anyway, everybody's got to kind of come into their own. They were fun stories, but they're added to this, along with. I know that the Chameleon was involved in there somewhat. To this extent, okay, whatever. And then we've got all these other storylines that are popping up. We're going back to the clone thing and the idea that Ned was being was killed. Taskmaster and Black Ant. Like, I haven't seen Black Ant in comic books in forever. I haven't seen the name mentioned forever. And I'm remembering here the whole lizard thing, and him being brought back after the clone conspiracy and all this other crazy stuff, which went into Dan Slott's storyline. Like, okay, yeah, I suppose there's all that. And then we're going back into the clairvoyance stuff, which also Spencer's stuff. We're being introduced to the guy who did the clairvoyance stuff. We got Chance showing up again. And it's like, I remember we saw him for a little while. And the only time Chance was ever really important was back when they were not introducing, but whatever, when they were bringing him because they were trying to introduce Venom and later on Carnage at one point. Silver Sable is in here, and the stuff going on with Symkaria and all that stuff is popping back up again, and I feel that if you're only reading Spider-Man, as far as comics are concerned, this still might be a bit too much for you. I think it might just be too overwhelming. Long-term storytelling is fine. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you do run the chance of making it so that it's hard for new readers to jump onto. If you don't care about new readers, then you don't care about this part that I'm talking about. Every time that I talk about a new reader jumps up, I always get somebody or a couple people who show up and they're just, well, that's on them. Sure. Anyway, it's important to make a comic book accessible. And I've been reading Amazing Spider-Man since Nick Spencer jumped on. And obviously long before that too. You could see the unbroken chain of reviews that I've done for Amazing Spider-Man, right? And even then I'm reading this stuff and I'm like, crap, I need to look this guy up and look up his most recent history because it wasn't explained in the preamble, in the foreword of this, which, mind you, came several pages into the book with the title page. When more happens in the comic book than can be explained, you might have just gone a bit too far. There might just be too much. Spencer trying to explain all these things. Look, I said before and I've said recently how it's great that Spencer seems to be trying to explain the Spider-Man universe, like retcon a couple of things and bring some things into a new light and shine a different light. Maybe look at things from a different angle and try to make Spider-Man's whole story make sense. I'm all down for that. But could there be a bit too much juggling? When you start off telling a story and then we forget about it, and we've got to go back and look at all this stuff, at some point, does reading a comic book like The Amazing Spider-Man feel like homework? Look, as a professional school teacher who's taught, from kindergarten up to, from being a supply teacher, what do we call it in America again? I forgot. I've been in Canada for so long. Supply teacher, substitute teacher, all right? From being a substitute teacher and teaching anywhere from kindergarten all throughout high school to teaching vocational schools and university, I understand the aspects of being a teacher. I also know the things that are wrong. I know the things that I'm really critical of. And homework is something that I'm extremely critical of. I hate the idea of issuing out homework, and I've always done it with my arm twisted behind my back. Homework is stupid. And when someone feels as though they're doing homework, I shouldn't have to research the history of a character with every single issue that comes out just to make sure that I know what I'm talking about when I talk about the thing. Because if you don't do that research, then you're not going to be caught up. You're not going to really understand what's happening in the book. There are things that were happening in the book that I'm reading. I'm just like, okay, that's interesting. Cool. I dig this. And then I go and look it up and I realize, no, wait, I was wrong. It's still cool, but it's cool in this regard. How are all of these characters in this one book? And this is part one of a new story arc, the Chameleon Conspiracy. It just feels like it's too much. And again, the Chameleon is a very fun character. There's so much you could do with the Chameleon, but could you also argue that there's too much to do with the Chameleon? Look, well, Spider-Man and clones have a really bad connotation. Like, those are two things you never want to hear mentioned together. Spider-Man and clones. It's like, nah, bro, I'm good. I gave it the office, right? And here, I'm reminded that the Chameleon is a very problematic character because, much like with the Skrulls can be a bit too much also. You have deception, you have all these different things. It can't be easy, and I wouldn't know. I've never really written a crime-type story before. But, when you have something like Secret Invasion where it's like, okay, everything that you thought you knew is actually a lie because this was actually a Skrull the whole time, and that was a Skrull, and he was a Skrull, and she was a Skrull, and everyone was a Skrull. Oprah Winfrey was a goddamn Skrull. That would actually explain a lot. That would, holy crap. Could someone please investigate that? But real talk, yeah, I'm just not seeing it. Every so often it's like, oh, the storyline that I liked was actually bullshit because that wasn't really my character. That wasn't really Elektra, and that wasn't really Spider-Woman. You know, the first time Spider-Woman was really not just great, but actually relevant to the rest of the Marvel Universe, turns out that was just the Skrull Queen the whole time. Well, that sucks. Really cool things that were happening with Wolverine, turns out that was actually a Skrull. Wait, what? This character who's been acting up and whatnot, oh, it turns out that was actually a Skrull. Huh? But they didn't make Hank Pym a Skrull. A character that we thought was dead. Oh no, that was actually a Skrull that was killed. The character's actually back. They've been living in a box the whole time. Right? You can see how that's problematic. You can see how it's like, well, you just retconned all of this and it was really lazy the way that it was done. Meanwhile, you just have characters up top like Wolverine and Luke Cage standing with each other. Claws that can cut anything. Unbreakable skin. Immovable force. What do you call it? Immovable object and what is that? Whatever the hell the saying is. Like, you get what I'm saying, where it's just people talking, and meanwhile there's some things going on that are actually changing the entire universe, and it's like, it's jumping the shark. It's too much. Too much is happening right now in the story. Too much is trying to be explained. I almost feel like Spencer is, whether he's trying to or not, because again, when I met him one time briefly, he seems like the humblest guy on the face of the planet. Man, I would love to be able to talk to this guy about what's going on in the story right now. But right now, I'm actually, I don't know, can you be scared? I guess, like, if you're really invested in something, as I'm really invested in the story, I feel scared that this story is going to jump a shark at some point, and it's too good. This whole run is too good to have a jumping the shark moment. But too much, too soon is just happening, and it's like, this is a story that is, what, 67 issues in with all those ancillary stories? We're so far into this run, and there's just too much happening right now. Too much that I have to go and look up. Too much I have to rectify, and like, I practically have to start. I actually thought at one point I should start writing down a timeline of all this stuff that's happening just so I get an idea of what's happening. It's too much. It's so much that's happening right now. I feel overwhelmed reading this comic book, and I'm already feeling really overwhelmed in my life right now. So it's like, bro, you know, comics that I would normally look at and just be like, whatever. It almost feels like betrayal right now, you know? And to read this and just have so much happening at one moment, brah. I think it's like you're at about 11 and I need you down at about a 2. You know, one of those kind of moments. There's just too much happening right now. And I'm talking about in the comic books. There's so much happening in Amazing Spider-Man right now with this first issue. There is nobody who's never read Amazing Spider-Man before, who maybe just saw Far From Home, or maybe he's been watching all the Spider-Man movies, like, you know what? I'm going to jump on the comic books. I want to see what the comic books are like. And you know what? This is the issue that's in the stores right now. I'm not going to ask, like, where's a good place to start or anything like that. I'm just, you know what? Let's just jump into it. And they go out and they buy this comic book. They look at it and they're like, I have no idea what's going on. No clue. What are the percentage chances? What is the likelihood that this person's going to stick with the comic book? What are the chances that this is a new person to support the comic book industry and the small business of your local comic book store? What are the chances this is a person who's going to renew their app, right? Nothing that happened in this comic book was bad. Nothing, made me go, oh, this is just stupid. It's all compelling. But if I, a long-time comic book reader, have been, like, if I look at this and I'm just like, wow, I need to look some of this stuff up. What about the poor schlub who's just like, I've only watched the movies before. I have no idea who the chameleon is. I have no idea who the foreigner is. I have no idea who, what's this guy's name? The Fixer? I can't remember. Anyway, the Finisher. You know what I'm saying? I have no idea who Silver Sable is. Right? I have no idea who any of the antagonists in this comic book are. I have no idea who Teresa Parker is. Peter Parker has a sister? What does she do? Because you can't really tell from this. There is no putting 2 and 2 together because there are a hell of a lot more numbers than just 2s in here. There's a lot going on. When you have too much in a comic book, it becomes impossible for a new reader to jump on. And new readers are crucial right now in this industry that we love. So, to give a comic book that I liked a bad review is a very strange thing to me, but that's what I have to do with this issue. I liked the art in here, but I'm now at the point where I'm wondering, what in the hell is going on? Is Spencer just putting out these comic books so fast that no one art team could possibly keep going with this? We still got Bagley and that crew doing the covers, so that I guess the book still feels familiar on the outside to us long-term readers. But on the inside, it's getting to the point where we're noticing the art. We're noticing that the art doesn't match up. That's fine when you're doing such radically different storylines, but again, now that I'm questioning so many storylines so fast, I'm starting to look at the art in a different way, like, maybe slow down. What's wrong with just a monthly comic book? Even if it was the bi-weekly comic book that we've been getting. Every 2 weeks we get a new Amazing Spider-Man comic book. Even if that's the case, I don't think that you need this many art teams. Like 2 art teams should be enough. Spencer is and has been a genius in my mind for a long time. But sometimes even geniuses need to be told, bruh, calm down. This is too much, too soon, too fast, with too little explanation about what's going on. And I think that's, if anything, that's the thing that's going to wind up killing this story, this run, this book that Spencer is doing. I don't want to see Spencer leave this book because I haven't enjoyed an Amazing Spider-Man book consistently for so long, for too long. And there's nothing to say bad about Slott. I loved what Slott was doing. I still wouldn't mind seeing Dan Slott tell another Spider-Man story or 12, But man, this needs to slow down because it's getting to the point where it's so convoluted that you need to keep a journal just to go along and understand Spencer's run. And I mean, 10, 12 years of Slott on Amazing Spider-Man? And I don't feel like I need to pull out a book to explain Slott's run. I could do that. I feel like I could do that now. You know what I'm saying? I might get a couple things wrong, but a quick, hours worth of looking over some stuff, I could get all my facts in order and just boom, go linearly. This is what happened with Slott's run. I could do the same with JMS. I could do the same with a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? I could do Ditko's easy. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people, John Romita. You know what I'm saying? You could do that with so many different runs here. I cannot do that with the current run. I cannot keep it. I cannot put all these in mind without actually writing down not just an outline, but a very detailed outline of what happened in this comic book run so far. Like, this is homework at this point. Tell me if you feel differently. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. I'm saying I'm sitting here enjoying a real nice cruise, and ahead I see a shark, and it's like, bruh. As long as it's not a shark-shaped iceberg, then I think that we're fine. Because we just run that shark, or we just plow right through that shark. See chum in the water. Like, I'm good. But I'm just saying, shark ahead. I see the fin. I hear the music. Dun, 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 dun. Just be aware that there's a shark in the future. And let's just pray that we don't jump that shark. Talk to you guys later. Like the video, watch an ad. Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.